everyone, and you're with me here on the Bookosmia Young People Podcast. And I am Archana, your host and the co founder of Bookosmia. As many of you know, Bookosmia is the number one creative platform for youngsters, encouraging them to express themselves and make them feel heard. Our family of young contributors spans across 125 plus global locations, with over 100 plus youngsters published on our platform each month. And I'm so glad that we are connecting today over a very special topic, something that's very close to our hearts as well. Countless discoveries, ingenious inventions, and lucky accidents have gone into shaping the world as we know it today. And this book delves into science, history, and every subject in between, revealing the stories behind the most significant breakthroughs that humans have made through the ages. From clothing, cartography, chemistry to music, math, and metallurgy. Well, at least that's what the blurb says of the book that I'm speaking about. The book, of course, is The Spark That Changed Everything, a lively and fascinating account of the marvels of human imagination and enterprise. And I'm so happy to say that we have the author here with us. That's Veena Prasad. And wow, does she write? We are going to hear more from her as we go ahead. Let's begin and get this going. I know our youngsters are very excited to come and interact uh, with Veena and to know more about her. But before we do that, let me go on to Nidhi Mishra. She's the CEO of Bookosmia. Nidhi, why are we doing this podcast? Why do youngsters get this opportunity to invite to come and interview authors?
Hi, good morning, everyone. And a very apt question, Archana. I love the idea of having these young readers come and talk about what they think of books which are written for them. So I'm very conscious. Growing up, also, we used to read so many books, and then we used to always read these reviews by adults about a children's book and wonder, oh, this point, why aren't they carrying this something that I felt about the book, right? So we want to be that bridge at Bookosmia. We publish everything that kids have to say, whether it is in textual digital format or they come here and speak. I think it's very important that we hear from them about what they think of various things in the world and specifically things which are meant for them. Actually. So, very, very excited. I know this is a very excited lot of readers who've been waiting and reading and have been trying to get their hands on the book even before we started thinking of the session. So, welcome everybody. And I know we have time while others are joining. So, Veena, I want to welcome you. I'm very thankful for you to have written this book. I'm reading it right now, and I think it just validates so wonderfully that if history were told in the form of stories, we'd never forget. And I think as an aspiration, as an aspirational history buff myself, I found this whole concoction of science, history, and imagination so palatable. That whole thing about having a story which a child can relate to, even an adult can. So while I know the book is meant for kids, I have prescribed it to everybody I know to pick up,
Oh,
and I'm
that makes
enjoying
me
it
so
as much.
happy. Yeah, you have no idea how happy that makes me. In fact, all through my school days, I was fascinated by this one person, Carl
Mm.
Sagan,
Right.
who had written amazingly about astrophysics, but in a way that was very accessible to people
Yes.
who didn't really have, a higher degree in science. And that was my first exposure to a book that explained science so well, whereas all my textbooks made it so dry, and
Yeah.
it's an altogether different way of reading when you're studying for an exam and you have to write an exam at the end of reading a book versus reading a book just for the joy of learning something new. So that was the
Yeah.
kind of idea that Carl Sagan opened up to me. I was in ninth grade, I think, when I read Cosmos. And then the
Yeah.
BBC
All
documentaries
right.
came, and I just
Yes.
devoured all of them. And throughout, I've been looking for non-fiction science books, which are now called popular science. And that is
Yeah.
really my favorite genre. And
This is
really, it
fantastic.
would be
Yeah.
very unfair to just call it science because, as you said, there's a lot of history. You can't
Yeah.
understand science without understanding history, and even to understand history, you need a little bit of science. So these are all very artificial divisions that we've made. And one
Yeah.
of my aims of writing something like this is to just bring about a sort of seamless enjoyment, if you like, of science and history and storytelling and everything. So that's what I do, and I'm so
Absolutely.
glad that other people enjoy it as well.
Absolutely. No, I love it. You're right. I think teaching it in a way where it seems like you're getting all the facts from a robot is how we learned it in school. That was always the case. Very boring, and just loved the whole well-rounded approach you had. Like if you're talking of wheels, we were always taught that wheels were so important. But I love that brought in that point about the Mayan Empire not using it, and it just seemed like there's so much more, and these are the questions I would have asked if I were looking at it. Thankfully, someone is addressing it. But I don't want to steal the thunder now, and I know these young readers have a lot to ask and share with you. So let's roll with that.
Thank you, Nidhi and Veena. Of course, a fascinating conversation already. I can see everything's brewing up. And to all of our youngsters who are watching this, reading, listening, know that you can be part of this wonderful initiative to come and speak up and interact with an author and ask the questions you want to ask. When we look at interviews, sometimes it feels like that's not what I would have asked. Am I right? So here's your opportunity to correct that, be the interviewer, and ask the questions you want to ask, because really that's what matters since you are the reader. I'm so glad to have all of our youngsters here today, and you will hear from each of them. So let me go with Raghav Joshi first. Raghav is 10 and he's from Delhi. He has interests in theater, music, and physical games, and he has a special affinity to write about
Yes,
aliens.
ma'am.
Isn't that right, Raghav? Raghav, did you go back to
No, 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 not
real
right
school
now.
now?
The news, according to news, we will go
Not
to
yet.
school after festivals.
After festival. So I just want to let you know also, Veena, that Raghav has written the story where he goes to school and finds that all of his teachers have become aliens.
Okay, wow.
Raghav, any
Uh,
chance of that
I
happening?
think so. There would be 0.
Before we start, Nidhi, you have been reading the book. Tell me
Yes.
your first thoughts about it, and I know that you guys also been doing something on science. So tell us a few first thoughts, and then before we jump in with Veena.
Yeah. So, I think,
Okay, I'm back.
okay, lovely, Veena.
Hey, Veena, come back.
Okay.
All right. I'll quickly answer a question meanwhile that Rachna posed to me about science. So yeah, by we I mean Bookosmia team. We've been working very closely with some IIT faculty, and in trying to make science quite interesting and fun for kids. And I'm very glad again for this whole set of people who don't want it to sound like anything in a textbook that we used to listen to. So we have an augmented reality app coming up, where you get to know about elements of the periodic table, and through some really fun poems and stories from kids describing that element. So hoping that it will stick on because it's more fun and less textbookish. But yeah, lots of efforts on the science side for us as well as we work with the IIT folks.
Right. Raghav, tell us your thoughts on the book and who do you
Ma'am,
recommend this
I
book
really
for?
liked the whole thing that this book was non-fiction. I was surprised that the title of the book was The Spark That Changed Everything. And I thought that it would be some fiction story, like some imagination, like there would be a spark from that, something would generate, something like that. And from my side, this book was really amazing. And this book is actually made for the people who have their interest in getting to learn about their surroundings. And I don't think that this book is for any age group. Yes,
Wow.
ma'am.
So it's universal for all. Lovely, Raghav. I so agree with you because my 10-year-old and I have both been engrossed and fighting to read the book, ever since we got it. So there's something about that book, Veena. And now I
Wow.
know Raghav has a question also. So after that, Veena, you can respond. Raghav,
Sure.
go
Ma'am,
ahead with
which
your question.
subject do you like the most?
Raghav, thank you so much for your thoughts on the book. And you are exactly the kind of reader I had in mind while writing this book. A reader who is looking for nonfiction. But yeah, now you have you created a little doubt in my mind. Should we have gone for a different title? Does the title sound like it's fiction? I'll have a chat with my editors on that. In fact, when we were designing the cover, there were like three or four options given to us, and one cover had a group of children playing around with sticks and stones and making fire. And then I said, I don't want that because, kids might think it's fiction. So we had this other, a sciencey kind of cover for that. So but now, so Raghav, thank you for your thoughts on that. And do you know what? Your question is a really difficult one. What is my favorite subject? So I've had different phases in my life when I've had different favorites. So when I was growing up, it was all about flowers and why are flowers so colorful and how do they grow and things like that. And as I became older and I started looking upwards at the sky, it was all astronomy. I was so fascinated by the stars and how far are they and how do they twinkle and could there be another life on some star? I would actually sit on my terrace and stare at the sky for hours, imagining that another alien being is sitting somewhere on some other planet and maybe actually also staring at me on Earth, and I would kind of will this alien being to send me some kind of message, and I would send them message, and I lived in this complete make believe world of my own, but I was fascinated by stars. And that was when I also picked up Carl Sagan, and he was wonderful in answering so many questions that I had on how humans figured out this whole the vastness that is cosmos, that just the unimaginable space that still continues to fascinate me to this day. And later on, as I started reading some more, as I started observing the world more, it just occurred to me that there's really no subject that you can't get fascinated by. A little bug, for instance. I mean, what is this bug thinking? How does it know where to go? Where is it going? What's it going to do when it gets there? So biology was another, fascinating area for me. So I just, just try to read up everything that I could about every subject because I'm fascinated by everything. What about you, Raghav? What do you like the best?
Ma'am, I am also confused. Like, I like almost every subject because everything is good.
Absolutely. I hear you, Raghav. I know exactly what you mean, and that's a good thing. It's not about confusion, it's just that you don't accept these artificial barriers that we've created, that this is science and this is history and this is geography. And even within science, this is physics, this is chemistry, this is biology. It's not like that. It's all life. It's all our Earth and our surroundings and where we are. So it's good. Keep your curiosity up, and eventually you'll figure out probably what is the one thing that you want to go really deep into. But if you are happy reading everything that you want to read, just go ahead and do it. It's not confusion, it's just curiosity.
Wow, that
Okay,
was
I
Raghav. Thank you
wonderful.
so
agree,
much.
Yeah.
Raghav, and absolutely agree.
Hmm.
And Raghav, while we have a very traditional education system where all these periods and subjects come separately, there is a lot of thinking in a very large part of the world where they want to teach these subjects together. So, if you say science and math and history and geography, they're all not really that separate, and it's called integrated learning. I hope we also get to that because, like you, I think many of us have loved too many things and at times wondered, oh my God, I'm all over the place. But I think that is how it should be because one thing leads to another. And hopefully we find a system where, these subjects come together rather than in silos.
Thank you, Nidhi and Veena and Raghav, for that wonderful question. A great start by our young Bukosmians. Uh, I, Veena has been talking passionately about how Carl Sagan has influenced her. So, all of you do have a look at what Carl Sagan's written. He's written some wonderful books. He also has done a wonderful series that I know a lot of us used to see when we were young. It was called Cosmos. And yeah, if you get a chance, please look at that. He also said a very famous speech about the pale blue dot, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. So here's what you'll do today: you'll go and search about Carl Sagan and find out what the pale blue dot speech is about, and of course, write and submit to us. We would love to publish it here. All right. Let's move on to Adita Biswas. Adita is 12 and she's from Kolkata. She's a talented young writer who's recently written on spirituality and questioned what happens if God come to earth. Hi, welcome, Adita.
Hello. Uh, good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Am I?
Adita. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
perfectly audible. Very nice to have you here. Adita,
yeah. I'm
yes,
so
go
happy
on.
to be here.
All right,
Yeah, I'm so
wonderful.
happy.
Uh, Adita, tell us about the cover page. They say not to judge a book by the cover, but there's been a wonderful cover page that's been done by Ray Zakaria. And if you could speak about what your thoughts are about the cover page of this book.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. At first glance, I did not think much of the cover page, but the more I got into the book, the more the cover intrigued me, as I really like the small cartoons that were there, and as they reminded me of the few of the books that I used to read earlier. And I also really liked how all the cartoons correlated to the topics that were discussed in the book. Yes, ma'am. All in all, I really liked the cover page. Yeah, it intrigued me a lot.
Lovely.
I think
Venus,
it
a
grew
note
on
for
us,
you.
is what she's
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
Okay, that's really nice to hear because yeah, I mean we don't judge a book by its cover, but we do open the book and we probably pick up the book first if the cover calls out to us. So no, Ray Zachariah is a very talented book cover artist, and yeah, I think it's really lovely. And thank you for your words, Aditya.
All right. And Adita, you have a question for Veena? Go ahead.
Yeah, yes, I do actually. I wanted to ask, why did you write the book? Was it because you thought that the stories were interesting, or was it because you thought these stories are the ones every child should know and should be interested in?
A little bit of both. When I started writing, I wasn't. So this was about 15 years ago. When I knew that I wanted to be a writer, I actually started by writing stories, just little short stories with surprise endings and stuff like that. And then I was invited by a children's magazine to write something. The editor was very vague. He said, "Can you write something that just sparks some kind of interest, imagination in the kid?" And that was when I went back to my childhood and I thought of what was the kind of reading that sparked some kind of a sort of thirst, wanting to know more in me. And I realized, why not tell stories that fascinated me, and we'll see how the kids like it. And that's how I started. In fact, one of my very first stories like this book, The Spark, was The Journey of the Wheel. And that was published in a science magazine that is now closed. It was called Brainwave. And that story, a lot of kids loved it, and they called me and we spoke about that story. That a little bit of the story appears in this book, The Spark That Changed Everything, with a little minor changes. It's not like the original, but I just changed it a little bit. So a little bit of both, Aditya. These are topics that really, really interest me, and stuff that I've read a lot about. And these are also things that I think a lot of children would love to know more about.
All right. Lovely observation there, Veena. Adita, does it answer your question?
Absolutely, ma'am.
And Veena, I just want to share with you something that I saw from the Goodreads comment about the book itself. And they said, usually science books are written by a foreign author or they are very textbookish.
Yeah.
This book makes it closer to home and gives inspirational discoveries from all over the globe. Highly recommended. It's a must have for 5 to 15-year-olds, says a review on something. So, how important are these reviews or feedback that you receive from these youngsters or generally your readers?
Oh, absolutely important. And if the review comes from a child, that is even more valuable because I mean, you young readers are the reason that we exist. So it is just so important. It is beyond what I can express. And this particular thing, that you read, that science books or popular science books are usually by foreign authors, just reminds me of a little incident. And during my engineering days, we were reading about an introduction to electronics, semiconductors and stuff like that. And we had this regular textbook that was prescribed to us that just straight away jumped into the mathematics behind it and all of that. But a couple of seniors, they recommended this book by a foreign author, and first of all, the book had glossy pages, so that made a difference. That made us want to actually read it. The print was beautiful. And so this person didn't really actually delve into definitions and, number one, number two, number three, that kind of thing. But he actually spoke about the history of electronics and how people thought of making this whole, the transformers, gates, and everything. And that was when that was like really my second education, if you like, after Carl Sagan, on how a topic like, such an advanced topic like semiconductor technology can be made interesting, and can draw people into it. And the book is academic. Finally, it's not popular science, it's academic. It's something that you need to pass an exam. So yeah, I guess there is some truth to it when they say, the foreign authors probably, write more interestingly or whatever, or they used to at one point. So anyway, I'm glad that I'm in this space. Although I didn't, when I wrote the book, I didn't really think of myself as, an Indian author doing something that maybe only foreign authors did before me, something like that. I never really thought of it in those terms. But now that you mention it, this incident just came to my head and I mentioned it.
Thank you, Veena. And I think it's a great lesson for all of our youngsters here who all want to be authors, who want to write, who want to go ahead with their art or their podcast, to not box yourself into categories, to just be able to go out there and express yourself and not worry about the fact that you are young and who's going to read a book that's written by a 12-year-old. I don't think you should be even doing that. And I think Veena's very inspirational words should stay with us, all of us Bookosmians here, as we continue to write and grow. All right. Thank you so much for that. I now want to go to Sanvi Agarwal. Sanvi is 11 and she's from Kolkata. She's a talented young artist as well as a writer. Some beautiful paintings she has made. And go ahead, Sanvi. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
So nice to have you with us, Sanvi. Sanvi, what is the most surprising thing about the book, according to you?
Ma'am, actually, as someone who doesn't really like the subject history in school that much, I was really surprised that I really enjoyed this book. I liked how ma'am was able to write and describe a boring subject like history in such an interesting manner with fun facts all over the book. This book was overall very fun to read, and I would really recommend it to someone who likes reading and who thinks history is boring. They would really love this book.
Right. Make history boring. No, make history interesting. Make science interesting. Like Veena says, they're all interconnected, and we should stop looking at subjects, separately. They're all interconnected, and I think that's a great takeaway from our conversation today. Sanvi, your question to Veena, please.
Uh, my question is, ma'am, what inspired you to write such a book with a unique topic describing ancient day things? As most children's story writing authors choose to write more of fictional stories.
Sanvi, first of all, you have no idea how happy you made me by saying that, you hate history, but you love this book. And I have to confess that in my school days, I hated history as well. I hated it with all my heart. And before every history exam, I used to wail to my parents, I'm not even planning to study history in college. Why do I have to write this exam? They have to give us an option in like fifth grade to start studying history. What is the use? Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, over the years, I guess what makes a difference is how it's written, really. Uh, and that brings me to your question: what made me write this book? So I have this urge, it's like if I don't write, I'm going to explode, something like that. I have this idea inside me that I need to communicate, or I've just stumbled upon this amazing concept. Maybe it's a scientific concept, or maybe it's something that happened in history that nobody really knows about, and I just read about it and I'm so excited. I want to tell everybody. And because I don't know, because my intention is to tell it to them in a way that I want the same fascination to happen inside them, that I sort of narrate it interestingly. To put it most simply, I can't describe what exactly I do, but I think essentially that is it. I want to tell a story. I want people to be as astounded as I am about the things that astound me, and that is the reason I use books and I use words to put this across.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, Veena. So nice to know that. And I have a very interesting here question on the chat from Nidhi. Are there some inventions or discoveries that got cut out, potential for sequel too, Veena?
Well, I tried to keep it basic in this book, so I didn't go deep into how computers were invented and stuff like that. But as of now, no, there is no sequel. There is no part two, unless the wonderful kids here can give me ideas and put me on a track where, yeah, maybe, why not?
All right, you
That's
said
wonderful.
it.
I think, Archana, we can run a
Yeah.
poll for all our Bookosmians, not just the ones here, and ask them if what would be some that come to their mind. Questions. I
Absolutely.
think a lot of us have had these questions all this while. Like how did we learn about boiling potatoes, for example? I always think about all these things, and this book was so perfect in so many ways in answering those questions. So maybe we can run a poll and ask kids to come with some entries and say what else would have been there.
That would be
What
fantastic.
makes you curious?
I
Absolutely.
would love to know.
So let's get it going now itself. Let's start. All of you on the chat, put on your chat the discoveries you would or inventions you'd like to know about that Veena has very kindly agreed to write a sequel for. All right, Veena, we arm twisting you a little bit.
My pleasure. My arm is there to be twisted. All yours.
Love your arm. All right, thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Sanvi. We'll now go to Anavadya DS, 11 from Trivandrum. Anavadya is a beautiful poet, and I'm so glad she's with us today. Hi, Anavadya.
Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Anavadya, tell us your favorite chapter in the book. I think it's a very difficult question for me personally because I loved several. But what is your favorite chapter in the book and why?
Ma'am, my favorite chapter is chapter 1, Fire, Fire, Burning Bright. I like this chapter because it is mainly saying about how man invented fire and it was quite interesting. I have studied so many science in this chapter. So I love this chapter, ma'am.
Wonderful, Anavadya. Nice feedback for you, Veena. I think it's a great move to put in the fire chapter right at the beginning. That's where everything started anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a spark that started everything.
Right, wonderful. Anavadya, you have a question for Veena?
Yes, ma'am, I have a question. Ma'am, as an author, how will you criticize your own book?
Oops.
I'm sorry, as a what?
Ma'am, as an author, how will you criticize your own book?
Okay, as an author, how will I criticize my own book? So I'll let you on a little secret here. I am constantly kicking myself. You have no idea of the hell that I go through every time I put pen to paper. I write one sentence and then I look at it from 1,000 different angles, and I'm, this something is not right. I'm going to change the sentence. I'm going to change the verb. I'm going to put the verb first. I'm going to make it change the active into passive voice. I'm going to make a character narrate this, and and until finally what I have in front of me is a whole butchered mess of words and sentences, and I start believing that I'm incapable of writing anything, And then I go and maybe I play with my dog or something, and then I tell my dog that I'm completely useless and that I should just stop writing, and I can't even put one sentence together, and all of that. And then somehow something happens, and the book happens. So yeah, I'm during the process of writing, I'm just a mess, a complete and horrible mess. But I don't know, man. Somehow it comes together.
That is such a fascinating look into your life as an author, Veena. We always assume that writers know it all, that the words flow to them as soon as they sit on the laptop. But, that is so right. It is a laborious
The words
process.
come and
Yeah.
the words come and slap you on the face and hit you on the head and then pull your hair and get into your ears and then they don't come out. And oh yeah, no, words can be really mean, but they can also be very, very beautiful when they decide to just sit together in harmony and make your sentence pop.
So they're like every preschooler I know then.
Absolutely.
All right, Nidhi, I want you to come in. I'm sure you have something to say on this.
No, I was just listening in and totally distracted by so many things. So I was like, does Veena write on a laptop or these are the kind of questions that come to me.
On a
Does
laptop.
anybody write in writing? Do authors write it out like with a lot of passion, pen on
yeah,
paper?
actually, no, when I'm given an idea, so when an editor approaches me with a really vague idea, write about a bunch of inventions, blah blah blah. So sometimes I want to, if I want to get a big picture of the book, if I want to sort of figure out where the flow is and how the book is going to the soul of the book, if you like, the entirety of the book in one image. That's what I do. I take a piece of paper and I try to put something, not a drawing really, but I like to make thing like not even a flow chart really. It's more like a mishmash of a bunch of ideas that just come into my head that I want to put together in a very spread out fashion, in a sort of flowy way on paper. So that's the only time I use a pen and paper. But once I start on the chapters and I know what's going to come after this and so on, that's the laptop.
Wonderful. No,
Thank
it's amazing because for this kind of a book, I constantly was thinking, how did you decide to scope in and scope out? Because there's so many questions, right? So there's this whole current day context that you bring in, like when you were talking of animals, killing animals, and the ethics around it now. Or the very, very nice piece about the toy thing that I hope some young child was not making it for any other purpose than enjoying themselves, a reference to toy factories now. So it was brilliant. And I was like, how would she have been scoping in and out? Like, I'm not going to touch this. There's not enough meat, enough space for it, or whatever. So I will probably just I know Archana very frequently writes everything on with pen and paper, which I don't do as much. What that thought process was like.
Well, so
Someone
these little bits that crept in, like the toy and the observation, and all of this actually just happened with the flow of writing. I didn't plan on putting that in there, or the ethics of hunting. I didn't really plan it out. As I was researching the topic, as the writing happened, it was just a thought that came to my mind, and I thought I should probably just put it there, and I did. So that was
Yeah.
how it happened. Yeah.
No, it's wonderful. And I think that's where it becomes so important that it's not just history, it's also commentary, current day commentary. And this is a question which will come to your mind, right? That if we were sitting at then for survival and how did it all start? So that's what I really
Absolutely.
liked about the book. It's not like one robot just throwing out facts at you. It looks like someone human has, when they were writing about this question came to them. And that's why it is being addressed. So it's not just history, science, imagination. There's also commentary of sorts, which is one.
Well, thank you for that, Nidhi. I hadn't actually thought of it as a commentary of sorts, but thank you for that. That's a great insight.
Loving the conversation. And to break a bit of the clutter, I have a question for you guys. This Nobel Prize winning scientist holds almost 50 patents. But one of his patents is a very interesting one for designing a new, original, and ornamental blouse. Whom am I speaking about? Very famous Nobel Prize winning scientist that a lot of us know. All right. So put it in the chat if you know the answer. And while you think about it, let's go on to the next speaker. I'm very happy to call Aditri Paul. Aditri?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Aditri. Welcome. Aditri is 10 and she's from Kolkata. She's fond of writing, sketching, and dancing, among a lot of things. Aditri, tell us one thing that will remain with you from this book.
One thing that will remain with me from this book is knowledge, and the way you have written it, which captured my attention. And I know I'll never forget this book and this moment when I got an opportunity to talk to you. And some people worldwide think that history is a boring subject, but even I think that. But the way you have written it makes the reader enjoy and learn better. I loved reading the book, especially the way you have written it, the language, because it was in a fun way. So, yes, it was worth reading, and I would recommend it for everyone.
Thank you, Aditri.
Wonderful,
Thank you, ma'am.
Aditri. Good to know. And yes, Aditri, please go on with your question for Veena.
Yes, ma'am. So, my question is, when did you first had the idea of becoming an author, and who inspired you in this path of your success?
Okay, so I have always been writing ever since I can remember. I think ever since I figured out that there were words and that they could be put together to make sentences and to express your thoughts, I've been writing. All of my textbooks from grade one have been scribbled with this or that or some other thing. I would actually be my teachers would call me out in class for not paying attention, but writing. Sometimes I would get away with it because they think I'm making notes, but I would actually be writing. And it so happened that because I loved science and so on, I went into engineering, and that was what I did for a while. But while I was in an office just coding, it became really boring. I mean, I also dealt with languages there. I was coding in C and C++, but it was so boring. And then one day I decided, I don't want to do this anymore. But all the time I was writing, and I didn't really realize that, that is what I could do for a living. Uh, I started a blog at some point, and then a lot of people that I didn't tell anybody that it was me. So none of my friends or my family, my cousins, nobody knew that it was me. I just started it under an anonymous name, and a lot of unknown people flocked to the blog and started reading it and started demanding more. I put out one article a week, and people would come and say, "I want to read more. Can you put out 2 or 3 articles a week? I love what you write." And that was when I realized that, oh, hey, I have a market. And then I pitched to some publishers, and when I started getting published, one of my stories won a prize, and all of that happened. And when I realized that my words are touching people and that they want to read more of what I write, I became really serious about a career in writing. And then I went and I met publishers. I spoke to them, and we figured out what publishers want, what readers want, and what I can write. And all of that came together, and yeah, here I am. I'm a writer now.
That's great.
Fascinating.
Thank you so much.
And are you also interested in writing, Aditri?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so maybe we could all take inspiration from Veena on, how to convert our passion and do something that we really love. Veena, you're inspiring all of us here, and I know I, for one, am taking a lot of notes from what you're saying today.
I'm so thrilled. I'm so thrilled. I have this little idea at the back of my head that I should maybe have some writing primer classes, little course on how to get started, and some of the mistakes I did that maybe I can share so you guys don't make the same mistake. Something like that. Little ideas brewing. So you guys are inspirational as well.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Veena. And we are so excited to collaborate with you in any way for our Bookosmians. I'm sure they will also be very excited to have you as a coach for writing. Thank you so much for that. We will definitely speak further on that. And now I had asked a question on who is the Nobel Prize winning scientist who holds a patent for a new original and ornamental blouse. And the answer, as given by our resident science buff, is Nidhi Mishra. It's absolutely right. It's Einstein, and tells you that You may be an expert in quantum mechanics, but hey, you can design blouses as well. Have multiple interests and do what you love the most, because that's what this book also speaks about, and that's what we learn from Veena as well, as she shares her beautiful story with us. All right, we'll go to Kyra now. Hi, Kyra.
Archana, sorry, I just want to add that the blouse that Einstein had come up with, it's not the blouse that we think of as for girls, it was for men. But what was very interesting was that it had two buttons, and the idea was that if you put on a little extra weight, the same thing should work. So that was the need that he wanted to address, that if you end up gaining weight, you should have to buy fresh clothes. And clearly he thought much of it because he patented it as well. So yeah, I remember reading about it that many women
Yeah.
had that issue. Why don't you do this for women as well? We may also have beer bellies. So I remember reading that whole
That's
book.
amazing. And the time also, I think during those times in the World War times, resources were scant. So they had to learn how to use and reuse their things. As they say, necessity is the mother of invention. And I think that's another great example of how the master used his scientific knowledge to design something that he thought was good for the greater good. All right. Thank you for that, Nidhi. Wonderful little snippet for us. Hi, Kyra.
Hello.
Kyra Verma is 13 and she joins us from Guwahati.
Yes.
All right. Kyra is a keen reader and is passionate about writing, coding, painting, and playing guitar. All
Yes.
right, Kyra, go ahead. If you were the publisher and wanted a sequel, what chapter would you like to be included?
Actually, I loved all the chapters of this book, but if I am a publisher and I have to write a sequel of this book, then I will choose the chapter number 5, Smarty Pants, because it was so fascinating to read. It actually gave me the inspiration to do something new every day. That's why I love the chapter a lot.
All right, wonderful. And Kyra, tell us your question for Veena.
Yes, I wanted to ask that, ma'am, from where did you come to decide that you're going to mix history and science together and that to add it in a book, in a novel?
Whom I would like to dedicate my achievement. Achievement, I don't know. Where I'm just, having fun. Seriously, I'm just doing what I love. I think honestly, I would dedicate it to this cosmos, this whole universe that conspired to make this happen. I think I'm incredibly lucky that I get to do what I love, and that I do it well, and people like it. Uh, so all of these three things coming together is not easy, and it doesn't happen to everybody. And I'm incredibly grateful. And I think, yeah, I will dedicate this to the cosmos.
Lovely, Veena. And Kyra has put her question on the chat, so you can go ahead and answer that.
Okay, yeah. So when did you decide that I will mix history and science together in a novel? Okay, this is not a novel. This is nonfiction. So it's kind of just a book that talks about science and history. But when you think about it, Kyra, do you really think they are so different?
Yes,
When there is a little bit in this book about how a chemist called Emil Brandt discovered phosphorus, and he did it quite by accident. And for that, I have to give you a little bit of history. How he did it. So it's not just about a textbook that says how talks about the element phosphorus and that it glows when it's exposed to air and so on. But I like to give you the story behind it. Would you really call it two separate things like history and science, or would you just call it learning about the world? That is how I see it. I honestly did not see it as mixing of science and history, because it's really how I take in information. I take it in as a whole. When I read something, I don't read it as just one thing. So I guess it was all there in my head already. I didn't consciously decide to mix history and science, but it's just how I see the world.
Kyra, does that answer your question?
yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kyra, and thank you, Veena.
Sure.
All right, wonderful. I think some echo, but we seem to be sorted for now. All right, so those were our six youngsters who spoke very passionately about what they liked about the book and their thoughts, and of course, their questions to Veena. Veena, there's another question for you on the chat from Aditri. If you could answer that.
Yeah, sure. So advice, I would say read a lot and write a lot. These two are really simple things on the face of it, but nothing can make you a better writer than reading. So I would say just read as much as you can, and read a lot of different things, not just, maybe you're just totally into some kind of fantasy genre right now, but that's okay. Read a lot of that if that's what you love, but also read other things, stuff that a friend is reading right now, or stuff that you've never heard of, but you're just curious and you want to pick it up. So just, it's called exposure. Expose yourself to a lot of different kinds of writing, and at some point you'll find a style of writing that speaks to you. This kind of for me, it's easy conversation style. The way I write is the way I speak. That is what I do best, and that's what I love doing. So I maintain that. And one of the things that is very important to bring in your writing is your own voice. It has to be your own individual voice. You shouldn't sound like somebody else. But here's the confusing thing: you actually have to read a lot of other people's works to figure out your voice. It just happens over years, and so just read a lot, also write a lot. And as you're writing, it gets easier and easier to write more and more. So if you haven't actually written anything yet, or if you've just written a few pieces, you would know that maybe it takes you a week to bring out a story. But if you're doing it regularly, if you're writing a blog or something every day, it just becomes easier to translate that idea in your head into words on your monitor or paper or whatever it is that you're using to write. So yeah, so reading and writing. That's it. It's as simple as that.
Lovely. They say that reading is inhaling and writing is breathing out. Am I right? Breathe in, breathe out is what they call
Oh,
about.
that's lovely. That's a lovely line. I hadn't heard it before, but yes, I will remember that. I'll
Right.
use it next time I'm speaking your line.
And please do. My arm is there to be twisted as well. All right, we've got a lot of questions, and I know they'll keep coming. But before we leave, I just want to ask you, Veena, is there anything you would like, a prompt that you'd give our Bookosmians? They love to write and express themselves, and is there anything you would like them to write? And I'm sure they will write. As you all know, there's going to be an amazing ebook that's going to come out with all our interactions recorded with all the youngsters and their views, and everything that from this interaction as well. So tell us, Veena, what can they write for you?
I will do that, but do you want me to take these two questions first? I see two questions on the chat.
Yes, please do if you have time. Absolutely.
Sure. So Kyra is saying, how long does it take for you to write a book? Ideally, a full-length book, which is like about close to 200 pages, will take me a year to research and write. If my editor is in a good mood, they'll let me take longer. So yeah, a year is what it takes. And then there's another question. A writer will read so many books, an author will at least read Harry Potter, and then only they will be writing. So who is my favorite author? So I have a lot of favorite authors. If I start listing, it will take till tomorrow to finish this. But because I read across genres. I don't just read one thing. So yeah, I've already mentioned Carl Sagan. I'd like to mention P.G. Woodhouse here, who sort of introduced me to the magic of the English language. How you can put words together that sparkle. So yeah, I mean, very, very broadly the two, but I have like at least 1,000 more. So I won't list all of those. So yeah, I hope I've answered these two questions. And Nidhi, for the prompt, yes, I definitely have a prompt for these bright young readers here. There is a little bit in the book where I say that not all ideas are good ideas. So I want you to tell me whether you agree with this line. If yes, why? And if not, why not? And give me a few examples. ideas that are not necessarily good ideas, if you think there are any. Could you do that for me?
Wonderful prompt. Already makes us think. And Nidhi, you want to add to that?
No, absolutely. I think that's a good thinking point. When I was reading that particular line in the book, and it was around lead, I think I went back to the project that we are doing with the science on the science side, where we spoke of lead and gave similar examples about how back then there were a lot of incidents which happened, but people could not pinpoint that it was because lead is poisonous. And the use went on and on. And some very interesting ones, like I think Queen Victoria used to apply this cream on herself, which had lead in it. And the idea was it will make her skin, look better and fairer. And the more she applied, the worse it became. And slowly it started to lead to skin poisoning. And we had so many examples around things like that, that Van Gogh used to have it in his paints, and slowly that lead became poisonous. And similarly, people would add it in their wine to make it a little sweet. So for me personally, that point totally kind of clicked, because I could see how an idea caught on, which shouldn't have as much for lack of information. And it is a great point. Let's not think of it only from the point of view of science, right? Or elements, or a use of certain things. I think it can be something where children can write about even current day scenarios or choices we make, whether we always go back to online school, for example. In what ways is it good, in what ways it's not. So many things that we kind of can take from a lived experience. I think it's a wonderful prompt, which is very open-ended rather than looking at it only from a particular lens. So really looking forward to see what our Bookosmians come up with.
I know what
I'm looking forward to it too. How do I access that? Will you mail it to me or something?
We will start publishing them, Veena, as at the
Okay.
beginning, and definitely we'll be putting it as Veena's prompts, and we would
Okay.
love to run a series on that. And of course, all of this wonderful work and questions will find a place in the ebook that will also be shared with you, as well as the Hatchet India, who have been gracious enough to send these wonderful books and be a wonderful partner with us for our podcast. I know one idea that I am not for, and that is Dalgona coffee. But hey, that's just me. So for all of you out there, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a brilliant conversation, and you can find this podcast on several audio streams, Spotify and Apple and whatnot. So you can log in there and check out, and do come in for more such podcasts by kids, for kids. This is India's first live podcast, and it takes tremendous courage and confidence for these youngsters to come out here and express themselves. And Veena, is there anything you'd like to share about how you felt about the interaction today?
Oh, I was totally amazed by the kind of questions that these bright sparks posed to me. I had such a great time answering all of these, and thank you, kids, for being here, for reading my book, and for telling me such lovely things about it. I'd love to read more about what you write. I'm really looking forward to that. And thank you, Archana and Nidhi, for having me. It was had a great time.
Totally our pleasure, Veena. All right.
Thank you, Veena.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Nidhi. Over from here, Raghav, Adita, Sanvi, Anavadya, Aditri, Kaira, you're all the little sparks that's going to change the way all of us think. All the best to you. Go well. And till next time, it's over and out.